Welcome back, dear viewers, and in this segment of our show we're going to be talking about President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's participation in the Financing African Economies Summit in Paris, where he shed light on the importance of international efforts to help African countries achieve economic growth despite coronavirus pandemic and facilitating technology transfer to African countries. And on this topic, we're glad to be joined live here at the studio by Dr. Marwa Mamdouh, African politics researcher. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Marwa.
Thank you very much. Very glad to be with you today.
We're so happy to have you today, and of course, it's always a pleasure having you.
Thank you, Naveen, and please call me Marwa.
Yes, okay, Marwa. So through your studies and your different researches in the field of the African economies and political economy in Africa, how do you evaluate the development in Egypt's foreign policy with regards to African countries?
Very good question, very broad, and it's a real challenge to answer, but I will do my best. Okay. When I talk about assessing what we have been doing in Africa, I will mainly start from 2014, summer 2014, and specifically the AU summit in Malabo, because Egypt resumed participating in the AU activities since that date. Okay. The last 7 years have witnessed a lot of challenges, not only on the political and security level in Africa, but also economically. And quite recently, we've seen this pandemic crisis. Yes. And this, of course, added more and more pressure on Egypt's foreign policy, how to address these challenges, how to understand what are the real needs of the continent. But let me tell you that the most important development that I really value with regard to Egypt's Africa policies is the perception of the importance of Africa in the mindset of the political leadership. Because when you have this, actually, you have this asset, you have this kind of support to the bureaucracy implementing the policies, even to other private sector, public sector, to civil society, to people, Egyptian people working in the continent, even on the individual level. So we have this priority now in the mindset of the African leader. We are lucky to have this, and we have these active bureaucratic institutions working in the continent, and we have a new vision based on the fact that Africa is no longer only in need for political needs or security needs. We have multi-dimensional needs which we are trying to revise every now and then in order to keep our policies updated.
Right. Well, Dr. Marwa, how do you view the importance of Egypt's status in Africa, especially with regards to its previous presidency of the African Union?
Well, you know, Egypt will always remain on the map. So by virtue of its geographic location, by virtue of its historical relations with the continent since even Hatshepsut, Queen Hatshepsut. So, I mean, we will stay on the cross-border between the old continents. We will stay actually with our own aim to keep Africa not marginalized. We know this, and we have the potentials by virtue of our expertise, by virtue of our understanding for the African people, because we are Africans. So I think that we have the capacity, we have the comprehensive power elements that can help us politically, economically, societally, environmentally, and the list is quite long. We have this capacity to work on the continent, provided that we keep our eye on the real needs of the Africans.
Right. Well, President Sisi participated in the African Economic Summit in Paris. What were the most important outcomes of this gathering, in your opinion?
This conference is twofold, or was a twofold conference. On a general level, it was mainly organized to address how to contain the repercussions, the negative repercussions of the COVID-19 pandemic on the economies of African countries. And this in itself is a kind of, how can I say this, testification of the importance of the continent in the international community. Africa is no longer marginalized. Nobody can doubt how important Africa is for the political and economic stability of the entire world. But the point is how to reformulate the relation between the African countries and between the international community to have it like a fair and square play. It's no longer these African colonies 100 years ago. It's now quite independent countries, strong. A lot of successful stories happened with so many different big African countries. So I mean that it is about how to exchange benefits. We
Yes.
have the natural resources in Africa, and other global powers, they have the know-how and they have the funding. So it is about finding this delicate balance between exchanging benefits, giving and taking. But on a less general level, we had this day dedicated mainly for supporting the Sudanese economy. And in here, actually, Egypt has a very important role to play. You know what, Naveen, it is as much as Sudan is important for Egypt as being a portal to the south, as much as Egypt is important to Sudan as being its portal to the north.
Yes.
So I want to say that it's kind of bridge. It's kind of mutual benefit. I lived in Sudan, by the way, and actually I graduated from the University of Khartoum.
Yes.
When you live in Sudan, you feel that you are not a foreigner. You are in your natural place. You feel how those two people are really common, how they share this common destiny. And I strongly value this understanding from both people, from the Egyptian and the Sudanese people, and from the two governments. And look recently how much we are coordinating in our political positions towards important files. Among them, or on the top of them, is the Nile water issue.
Definitely.
Look at the cooperation even in enhancing our military capabilities through this military maneuvering taking place very recently. That's how actually Egypt and Sudan working together. So being there, His Excellency President Sisi, being there is a strong message. We are here for our brothers and sisters in Sudan. Post-revolutionary Sudanese system is now acquiring international recognition and international birth certificate. The Sudanese people have worked for this day. It's quite illogical, quite unfair to expect that a people suffering from $50 billion debts can achieve economic growth. Quite unfair. And you know what? 80% of this debt is actually going to the debt service and to paying arrears. So in order for post-revolutionary Sudan to start be on the right track of humanitarian development, of economic growth, first of all, this debt has to be forgiven, has to be relieved. And that's why this day was dedicated for these staff. And I think Egypt here has a very strong role to play. Can, of course, exchange experience in this staff, let alone the fact that Egypt has its successful economic saga.
Yes.
We have this model, we present it. We have the model of dealing with crises, by the way. We've been through too much during the last 10 years, and we successfully passed these challenges and crises, security-wise, political-wise, economic-wise, developmental-wise. So we can work hand in hand with the Sudanese people, transfer our knowledge, our experience, work with them with the stakeholders to find funding, financing, trying to transfer our knowledge in the agriculture sector. Sudan has a lot of potentials, but it needs actually all the sincere friends. Actually, I consider that Egypt and Sudan belong to one family, not only friends, not only neighbors. We are a family. So it needs the help of the family. I am sure they are on the right track, and I'm sure that Egypt has a strong role to play in this regard.
Yes, sure. We're looking forward to this, of course. In light of the recent Paris Economic Conference on Africa, and given, of course, the long-lasting COVID-19 pandemic crisis and its repercussions on African economies, can you reflect on Egypt's economic relations with the African countries, and what role can Egypt play in this regard?
Well, frankly speaking, there is always the dilemma of what we call role-cost nexus. In order to play a foreign policy, an active foreign policy, or to have an influential role, you need huge economic costs to be paid. Frankly speaking, we have in Egypt, we have our goals as well regarding our domestic and national economy. So how to balance between actually the challenges of national economy, the domestic needs here in Egypt, and between helping Africa, here comes the question. You know what? In the concluding chapter of my PhD thesis in London, I imagined call it an idea. It is about time to make the best usage of every single piaster, not every single even pound, every single piaster is paid. You have to put it correctly in the right place. It is about redistributing the priorities of the continent. We have to gather all our expertise here in Egypt crème de la crème of the Africanists in Egypt and let them set priorities according to each country. I cannot use one single medicine for all. No, it can't be like this. I have to go, for example, to the country A and look at the health sector. And under the health sector, I look at a subtopic. Let's say the problem of, now as you've just mentioned before our meeting today, this Covaxin. It's quite challenging, and we can do a lot in this regard. We have our story of success before with regard to virus C treatment and how we sent big quantities of it to some sisterly African countries. Some of them were even like a gift or something. So I mean that we have to start to move in Africa vertically based on thematic kind of movements. So we address every single need and we respond to it, because you cannot actually, you cannot give everything on equal basis. This is a challenge. I also believe in the good repercussions and the good outcomes of the CAFTA, the Continental Free Trade Agreement. It will eliminate a lot of barriers, bearing in mind the fact that we are already members in the COMESA. We can start actually dealing with other RECs, with other regional economic communities. And this, of course, will open more horizons and opportunities. I really believe in what Kwame Nkrumah once said, Africa must unite. And you have on the Agenda 2063, you have economic and political integration as top priority. So we have our tools, we have our expertise. I am not really satisfied when it comes to intra-Africa trade rate. Still actually most of the African trade is with outside Africa, not within African countries. We have
but
to
how
work
far
on
do you
this.
think the African Free Trade Agreement will facilitate inter-African trade? I mean, it will remove a lot of barriers.
A lot of barriers,
said.
taxes and these stuff, but we need, parallel to this, we need actually a lot of infrastructure projects. And again, we have our successful story here. We've been working on infrastructure and road building for years now. And actually this helped a lot the domestic trade in Egypt. So you have this and you have your companies. You have the Arab contractors, you have Orascom, you have the public and private sector. And we have a lot of strategies. Look at the Cairo Cape road and other parallel roads to it. So we have first of all to provide the infrastructure, necessary infrastructure, together with the CAFTA. The CAFTA will provide the laws, the regulations, and then we have to start actually to see what do we have here in Egypt, what is the economic preferential privilege or advantage we have, and what each country has. For example, I am here cultivating cotton with high quality. What country B or country C in Africa can provide me with? We have to work together in collaboration and in cooperation. And this is our only way to face the international club and to find a place for Africa in this club, politically and economically. And we have to build on this conference that took place last week in Paris. I can see that the international community is extending hands to the continent. So we just need to grab this hand.
Right. We will just go to a live transmission to a press conference by Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry. Welcome back, dear viewers, and that was a press conference by Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry in Ramallah on the latest developments in the Palestinian cause, as Shoukry expressed Egypt's appreciation to the Jordanian role in protecting the Islamic and Christian holy sites in Jerusalem. The foreign minister said the priority now is to maintain a ceasefire between Palestinians and Israelis and to focus on the reconstruction of Gaza under the initiative launched by President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. And continuing with our guest here at the studio, Dr. Marwa Mamdouh Salem. Dr. Marwa, we were talking about the participation of President Sisi in the latest economic conference on the economies of African countries.
Yes, I was telling you that His Excellency's President Sisi's participation is a strong message. Egypt is right in the neighborhood of Sudan, and we have these kind of historical bonds between us. And we have our knowledge to offer to our brothers and sisters there. And Sudan really is now celebrating a new epoch. I'm glad that after 3 decades we are returning back to that strong collaboration, that strong coordination in vital issues I was mentioning to you, the Nile waters issue, I was mentioning to you the common military maneuvers. This actually, it says that the two governments, the two political leadership in the two countries, the two people, they understand their common destiny. So our participation there sends this message very clearly, very bluntly. We have to work on this. The situation now is improving for the Sudanese economy after starting the process of debt relief. So I think now we can start working hand in hand in other sectors, particularly agriculture sector, education, health sector. A lot of things, the way is paved and the will, the political will, the popular will exists. So we have to start grabbing the momentum now.
Right, I would like to thank you very much, Dr. Marwa Mamdouh Salim, African politics researcher, for your insight and for joining us today here at Cairo Local Time.
Thank you very much. Looking forward for next time. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you. Dear viewers, that brings us to the end of this edition of Cairo Local Time. Many thanks for watching and stay tuned for the top stories that will be coming up in a moment.